Quite a heavy week we have today. Hamas launched a massive attack on Israel. Talking briefly about that. Pope Francis has started his synod on synodality with very mixed results. I'll be talking a bit about that, along with his document on the environment, which he recently released at the same time. And finally, if you've got quite a lot of cash to spare, would you like a degree, our master's degree no less, on magic? We'll be talking about that and the Catholic response to that. So welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, everyone. Where do I begin with, I'm just recording this on Saturday afternoon, and the horrific reports and videos coming out of Hamas's attack on Israel, their taking of hostages, and their outright killing of other Israeli citizens as well. Obviously, as Catholics, we need to pray for peace in that part of the world. But the disturbing images that we're seeing, the video releases that's coming out of Hamas, parading women naked on the street, of shouting Allah Akbar, of destroying human beings and using people as human shields from the inevitable Israeli response, which is going to happen, I can only say is wicked at a fundamental level. And just for the people who are responding in London, celebrating this horrific act, I've got 3 words for you. Shame on you. Now, you can argue that, yes, a dog that's been beaten down so much will eventually bite back, and there is arguments to be made for that. But fundamentally, the fact that you are willing to celebrate the degradation of human beings to this level shows your utter lack of morality and your ideological blindness to a degree. I'll have a lot more to say about this next week when things become a bit clearer, but I think a few points we need to say now. First off, we need to pray for the people, for all people involved, for the repose of their souls. This conflict has gone on now for about more than 24 hours, rather, and the death count has already reached hundreds. I suspect it'll reach a lot higher before all of this is over. And pray that peace is quickly restored. I have no doubt Israel will eventually win. Their military might is simply too strong for this to be successful. But I'm just concerned about the massive body count that's going to be resulting in this. So please pray for the people of Israel. Moving on to the synod on synodality, has not gone off to a good start, and this is due to the response of the Dubia cardinals, that the Vatican released the response to that. And all of this is overlooking the actions against Marco Repudnik, and the Vatican's maneuverings around that. He's been kicked out of the Jesuit order. I'm not going to go into detail today about what he's been accused of. The accusations do seem to be more than valid, and it seems to be ongoing throughout his priesthood. You can look them up. I warn you now, it's pretty stomach-churning as the videos that are coming out of Hamas's attack on Israel. Stomach-churning at a different level, but stomach-churning nonetheless. Don't say I didn't warn you. But there's the response that the Pope has given to the dubious questions which have been submitted by the cardinals, and there was 5 of them: Walter Brumauer, Raymond Burke, Joseph Zen, Juan Ignatius, and Robert Serra. There were a number of questions that they issued. The one down on gay marriage seems to be getting most of the press's attention and most of the people's attention as well. It's about the blessings of same-sex unions. So let me give you the response, which has been given by Pope Francis. And it says, first off, the Church has a very clear understanding of marriage as an exclusive, stable, and indissoluble union between a man and a woman, naturally open to procreation. This union can only be called marriage. Other forms of union realize it as only as a partial and an anomalous way. It's a bit confusing the way, but nonetheless, he is clearly supporting the idea that marriage is between one man and one woman to the exclusion of all others. So he continues here. It is not just a matter of names, but the reality we call marriage has a unique, essential constitution that requires an exclusive name, not applicable to other realities. It is undoubtedly much more than a mere ideal. Marriage is a union sanctioned by God between one man and one woman. That is not open for debate. But it gets a bit cloudy on the next two paragraphs of his answers, answers D and E. This is what it says. However, in our relationships with people, we must not lose the pastoral charity which should preanimate all our decisions and attitudes. The defense of objective truth is not the only expression of this charity. It also includes kindness, patience, understanding, tenderness, and encouragement. Therefore, we cannot be judges who only deny, reject, and exclude. And he carries on. Therefore, pastoral prudence must adequately discern whether there are forms of blessings requested by one or more persons that do not convey a mistaken concept of marriage. For when a blessing is required, it is expressing a plea for God for help, for a supplication to live better, a trust in a Father who can help us live better. Basically, this response raises more questions than answers. What the Pope is trying to do is he's trying to uphold the definition of marriage, which is exclusively between one man and one woman, but at the same time, he doesn't want the church to be exclusive to others, to remove gays, and to tell them they are not welcome in the church. Let me tell you clearly, same-sex attracted people are welcome in the church, but Christ calls all of us to change. And we cannot change the church to accommodate people. People have to change to accommodate the teachings of Christ. To put it bluntly, ladies and gentlemen, as a priest, I cannot bless sin. It is physically impossible for me or for any priest to do so, despite what the bishops in Berlin might advocate for. So essentially, if a gay couple has come to me for a blessing, I can't bless them in their union. I can bless them individually for the openness of God's heart to come into them, and that's proper, and that's fitting, and that's what I think Pope Francis is trying to explain here in his answers to the dubia. I personally think he could have done it a lot better, but that's what he's trying to do. We do need to be pastoral, but at the same time, the message has to be made very loud and very clear. We can't bless sin. In Matthew's gospel, it says, let your yes mean yes, and your no mean no. And that's a critical point we need to make very clear. Now, added to this, Pope Francis released his environment document called Laudate Deum, and he says a number of things. First off, he attacks people who deny climate change. So people are denying that it happens. He talks about the rise of sea levels and the fact that it is clear that man-made climate change is an established fact. And in paragraph 6, this is what he says. In recent years, some have chosen to deride these facts. They bring up allegedly solid scientific data, like the fact that the planet has always had and always will have periods of cooling and warming. They forget to mention other relevant data, that we are presently experiencing an unusual acceleration of warming, At such a speed, it will take only one generation, not centuries or millennia, in order to verify it. The rise in sea levels, the melting glaciers, can be easily perceived by an individual in his or her lifetime, and probably in a few years, many populations will have to move their homes because of these facts. Well, this is an important thing here, and I need to make this very clear, because a lot of people are saying, well, Father, you're denying man-made climate change. Let's be clear. I don't believe in man-made climate change. This, climate change is around. That's quite obvious for everyone to see. But the scientific data to support man-made climate change is sketchy at best. But a lot of people say, oh, Father Allen, you're attacking the Pope. No, I think there's an important distinction to be made here on what's called prudential opinion and doctrine of the faith. I cannot disagree with the Pope on a doctrine of the faith. So the Eucharist is the literally body, blood, soul, and divinity of our Lord Jesus Christ. That is beyond discussion. I cannot disagree with that and still be a member of the church. However, what the document that the Pope Francis has produced today, Laudate Deum, is, to put it bluntly, a homily. And the Pope is certainly entitled to his opinions. He's certainly entitled to express them. That is his right. However, it is not obligated by Catholics to agree with the Pope and still be a Catholic. I've had a whole bunch of arguments on Twitter about this. One of the more recent ones is Tony Arnott, and you can see that on my Twitter page. It is basically getting ridiculous. But Arnott's basic argument is that everything the Pope says, especially ones that support his ideological opinion on climate change, should be taken as gospel truth, and no one should question it. Well, no, that's just simply not part of Catholic teaching. You can agree with the Pope on certain things, you can disagree with him on others. I'm not expecting everyone to agree with me on a certain number of issues, but when I say the body of Christ, for example, people do have to agree with me on this. Difference between prudential teaching and teachings of the doctrines of the faith. We really need to make that distinction clear. But Pope Francis goes on here in this document, and on section 22, and this is something which is really important, and this is what he says. Without a doubt, the natural resources required by technology, such as lithium, silicon, and so many others, are not unlimited. Yet the greater problem is the ideology underlying an obsession to increase human power beyond anything imaginable, before which non-human reality is a mere resource at its disposal. Everything that exists ceases to be a gift for which we should be thankful, esteem, and cherish, and instead becomes a slave, prey to any whim of the human mind and its capacities. Now, it's important I'm clear. God has given us the earth to care for it, to measure it responsibly. Nobody is supporting polluting rivers, polluting the air in the name of unlimited economic growth. However, it has been established that the best way out of poverty for every nation has been industrialization. China has taken that message definitely to heart. They are producing coal-fired plants like nobody's business. They are producing industrialization. Why? Because it's been clearly established it works for getting people out of poverty. However, in the drive to virtue signal, the drive to bring people on board with these wind turbines, with battery-powered cars, what do battery-powered cars need? Lithium. The massive exploitation which has taken place on the African continent, the use of child labor in the lithium mines to produce the lithium so people can drive around guilt-free in the streets of London driving their electric cars. There's a clear problem here with this double standard. And Pope Francis mentions this actually in paragraph 23, that idea that the earth is very much there for us to exploit. It's a dirty little secret that the environmental lobby doesn't really want you to hear. But then on paragraph 23, Pope Francis goes, "It is chilling to realize that the capacities expanded by technology has given those with the knowledge and especially the economic resources to use them an impressive dominance over the whole of humanity and the entire world. Never has humanity had such power over itself, yet nothing ensues that it will be used wisely, particularly when we consider how it's currently being used. In whose hands does all this power lie? Or will it eventually end up? It is extremely risky for a small part of humanity to have it." I would agree absolutely with that. We've got this small group of virtue signalers on the environment. We've got the World Economic Forum. We have various environmental lobby groups saying we need to move to wind power. We need to move to solar power. We need to have all these different types of powers away from the cheapest and reliable forms of energy. But what they're not being is directly honest with the majority of the people of how much this is going to cost. And a simple environmental fact needs to be mentioned here. People die far more from the cold than they ever do from excessive heat. That is a fact. And we need to be careful when we get these environmentalist do-gooders, for lack of a better term, explaining to us, we have to change, we have to change, we have to change. The question every Catholic has to ask themselves is, and them, is how do you plan to do that? That's an important question that needs to be answered. Finally, last but not least, I like to have the question, do you have £12,000 to spare? Well, if you do, you can actually get a master's degree in magic and occult science. Yeah, I know, I'm not kidding here, but this is true. From Exeter University. And this is now we have a witch trying to explain what is the significance of this course.
And I work with mainly women all around the world, and it's just the most wonderful thing that I can share with people.
Just so we can understand a bit more, Emma, what does it mean to have a job as a witch? What do you do?
I actually sort of help women, mainly women, connect back to their true selves and step into their inner power, their inner magic. I help them find who they really should be in this lifetime. I help them banish things. I help them manifest things. It's nothing scary. It's nothing like you see on the movies. I'm
So
just
it's more of a
working with
form of
nature.
therapy than casting spells?
Yes, it's not all about the spells. I mean, yeah, we do spells, but that's a very small part of it. But witches are connected to nature, the moons, crystals. I mean, I have crystals with me all the time. We work with the herbs as well, so and plants and flowers and
It's obviously very hard not to take this as a bit of a spoof and a bit of a funny way we're not talking about money and people's university degrees. But there are a couple of major points that we need to discuss here. First off, my advice on anything to do with the occult, on magic, my very strong advice to Catholics is stay away from it. If you are worshiping or acknowledging any spirit other than the Holy Spirit, you are simply asking for trouble. Don't get into this. It might sound all nice and rosy on the outside, but on the inside covers from very dark forces. The interviewee herself is actually saying, oh, we need to identify with ourselves. We need to examine ourselves. Well, we have a word for that. That's how the transgenderism issue came out. I don't want to acknowledge reality. I want to acknowledge what I feel on the inside. So that's an important point number one. Important point number two, I think, is indicating that everyone wants a degree. And I blame Tony Blair for this. The idea that a university degree is important and the high deal of everything. Now, I'm probably the last one to talk about this. I've got degrees in history, political science, and theology. But you don't need those to be successful in the eyes of God. When I am brought before the judgment seat of God, I'm not going to be asked, how many degrees have I got? What are my academic credentials? What were my academic scores at university? I'm going to be asked, how did I love God? And how did I love my neighbor? What are my acts? As James said in his letter, faith without works is dead. Works are the main thing, not your academic credentials. So always keep that in mind. Getting a university degree is a great thing. I wouldn't dismiss that by any means, but you can still be a productive member of society. You can still be a productive member in the Church of God by using the talents that God has given you outside of the university academic spectrum. There is nothing to be ashamed of, and you are still a beloved member of God. That's all I have for the show today. Thank you so much for listening in. Thank you all, and God bless you. If you want to hear more of my homilies and more of my chopper talks, you can subscribe to my channel, and God bless you, and see you next week.